Hi, everyone. I sprayed seltzer all over my notes, so if I say the names wrong, it's totally my fault. I sprayed seltzer all over my notes. Okay? Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody here to our Community for Care program tonight. My name is Cheryl Cook. I'm the chairperson of Simsbury's Community for Care. And tonight we are so pleased to present a very important topic. It's important to our kids and to adults alike. And we're hoping to increase our understanding of this very important field. We have with us tonight from Welcome to Reality, Webb, and he's going to lead the discussion tonight. We also have our SRO, Officer Cushman, and from the Prevention Corps Service at Yukon, if that's...
Ish.
Michela Woods, and she does a lot of work with children particularly who are on the autism spectrum, and young adults who have issues with social media. So we're hoping that we learn a lot with the discussion, and there's going to be a question and answer period at the end, and I know all of our panelists will be willing to take questions, so I will leave it to you.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. I know it's late in the evening and nighttime doesn't help. So again, I just wanted to talk about, as far as obviously social media, the impact it has on children, not only children, but also the adults that are involved as far as in these children's life, legal caregivers, just caregivers in general. Here, I have this PowerPoint up, but I figure just kind of use it as a guide as far as to just kind of go through it. And I know my colleagues that are also here at the panel, as panelists will also comment as we go along as well too. Oh, the green light. Yeah. So that's what we'll do here as far as that goes here. Just a little bit about Welcome to Reality, how we came about. I'm gonna super cliff notes here. We came about, just give or take, about 8 or 9 years ago here. Myself, we're social workers by trade as far as that goes here. And a couple of us actually work in the higher education as far as, adjuncts in certain institutions here in Connecticut. And it just came about where we were doing assignments as far as with our students here, and some of the papers were coming back with in acronym forms, and it was just like, what's going on here? We shared a couple of classes in common. And then also there was an exercise that was done where the students did like a kind of their own colony, their own reservation kind of situation here, where they would do 7 days a week here. And then when they came back with as far as what they wanted to do here, each day just kind of just raised an eyebrow to us, and each as the day of the week went on, the eyes got even wider here. It was just from wasted Wednesdays to thirsty Thursdays, sexual Saturdays here. And then actually, and the groups are co-ed. And one of the things that really stuck out here was that this is before Fitbits became kind of a real big thing here. They had, as far as for the women, and women agreed with this, as far as to have a bracelet for all of the sexual encounters that they had to keep track of that on their bracelets here. And this was group assignments here. So the big question for my partners and us was just what more can we do here? So it just kind of snowballed into not only forming Welcome to Reality here, but also doing presentations. And we've been fortunate enough to even actually have a course out of University of Bridgeport here around it. And we've been able to travel not only in Connecticut, but outside of Connecticut as well too. So that's the super duper cliff notes as far as how we came about here. We're Connecticut based as far as company as well too. So like I said, I just wanted to use this as a guide here. I will use it as a guide if it moves on. So this here, basically how this came about. You guys remember all of this stuff, right? Let's get a little dose of nostalgia here. Obviously, from the boom box here where you pretty much can separate your shoulder. You have, I don't know who still owns a rotary phone, but pay phones, Walkman or CD man, all of this encompass this now. And just think about it, as far as our kids and our youth here, just the access that they have, all of this stuff here. Being at home, before we usually probably had to ask to use the phone. The computer's probably in only one place in the house growing up here. That cell phone, that's actually the first original cell phone. I think it weighs like 7 pounds or something like that. And then even with the television here, we were actually our parents' remote, as far as having to go up and turn the channels ourselves here. But now all this encompasses on this phone here. Just think of just the accessibility, like, our kids and also adults have with this here. It's a lot of privilege that comes with this, a lot of responsibility. Sometimes as parents, we totally forget about that. We just think we're giving them the phone, and that's it here. But it's a lot of stuff that just comes with that. I'm just going to go through this very quickly here. Penetration rates. Basically, this was a system that they use as far as how fast, consumers purchase the item, up to 50 million consumers here. And you just see how slowly the years get shorter and shorter here, from 38 years to get 50 million consumers here, all the way down to the iPod, 3 years. And as we continue here, it lessens and lessens and lessens. I don't know who sits at home or in a cubicle playing Angry Bird, but as far as that goes here, 35 days for you to consume, as far as to get 50 consumers to purchase this here. So just how fast is the world that we're living in as far as these purchases are being made, and obviously companies are eating it up here. This is actually a real thing here. As far as, just think about, as far as this kind of ties into parenting as well too. That's an iPotty. You can look it up on your phones or do what you want here, but just think about some of that as far as just how we train our kids as far as going to the bathroom before. Just you go to the bathroom, you make a mistake, we clean it up. Now the devices are even making their way into as far as kids having to go to the bathroom or what have you there. And remember, kids, no matter, even how young they are, they model after us, as far as that goes here. And they see us sometimes as parents, maybe bringing our own phones into the bathroom, thinking that's something that they should be doing or they're comfortable doing, whether phone, tablet, you name it here. But again, and clinically, there's no diagnosis yet for this, but I'm sure it's on its way, as far as that goes here. But just think about that as far as like, does Tyler really need to use a tablet to learn how to go to the bathroom here? Just think about this, kind of how that continues to grow and develop into other situations. This jacket here this was actually an older version. Now they have jackets now where, with the solar, where it creates energy and you can just have devices like to charge. You're pretty much a walking charger, as far as with your coat and with your jacket. And obviously there's a different electronic devices here, things that they're creating. 2020. So imagine back in the year 2000, some of this stuff was in its infancy or didn't even exist at all. Anybody here do Groupon now? Pinterest? I'm sure Pinterest is a pretty big thing. Somebody's probably on Pinterest right now wondering what they're going to cook for tonight when they get home. Obviously, you got Facebook. These are just some examples here. But think about it, as far as kids are now not having no frame of reference these days. Some of us, we could just think back with our parents, boy, you never, there's nothing new under the sun I don't know. There's nothing you ain't told me that I've done here. But now just think about it. Let's just say, for instance, with Twitter, your kids are talking to you, or even your students or what have you here, just minors are having interactions with you. You can't say, well, boy, I remember my first Twitter beef or my first Twitter fight that I had. Is no frame of reference now. So I think it's just one of those things to having to just, one, level up and kind of just be on the same page with them. Again, as much as you try to stay on the same page with them, as far as it might be, that might be one of my videos if you want to just pause it. But as far as that goes here, just thinking about that, as far as just being mindful, like as much as we try to stay, neck and neck with our kids, they're always going to give or take be a step or two ahead, but it's still our job as parents and as far as the adults to make every effort that we're still kind of in line with them as well. Thank you, sir. And again, I know I'm kind of just going through these because I think the conversation is probably going to even be more kind of informative versus kind of just going through these slides here. I know pornography is huge. We had a situation actually where a parent came up to us where a kid had I guess wanted to have some information about a hamster. He accidentally, I guess, put S or X hamster, and next thing you know, mom, a couple of days later, happened to look, and X hamster is actually a porn site. And it would just, you know how those things just pop up on the side, advertising. She's like, "What's going on here?" He's like, "Mom, I was just trying to just look up a hamster because I wanted to bring a hamster home, as far as, the schools, how you get to bring animals home." But again, it's just one of those things here as parents, just being mindful as far as even the parental controls and what we have here. And again, that was a porn site, but it could be other situations as well too. Just being mindful to some of those situations. And some of that leads to trafficking, as far as just thinking about the online predators and what have you there, as far as pretending that there's somebody else, pretending that they're that kid's age or what have you. In Connecticut, think about in Connecticut here. Connecticut's in between where? New York and Boston, that's correct. And think about it, there's a lot of mass transit, as far as from planes, trains, buses, you name it here, as far as it goes here. Even being out here in Simsbury, coming down, whether it's me taking 44 or 185, there's still pockets in different places where there might be that one hotel, motel somewhere here that's just, sticks out like a sore thumb. But if you're traveling, just think about, the Berlin Turnpike, just think about those places here where you have all these chain restaurants and then you have this old looking motel. Why is that there next to this brand new store? Just kind of just think about some of those things here. But I know Connecticut has made strides in that area, as far as even with the motels here, where I think twice a year, or even might be more than that now, they have to submit their logs as far as people that are staying in these motels and hotels here in regards to that. And trafficking is, I could spend like a day or two just talking about it, but just having to be mindful of some of that stuff, because it's definitely prevalent as far as it goes here. And even, somewhere in Simsbury, I know there's town events that happens, and there might be fairs, there might be, in the fall, public places where like these people are meeting at, so don't think sometimes it's just online. It may start online, but eventually it might end up somewhere, as far as, the center of town that they're meeting might be a public event here, because on a larger scale, the Super Bowl is generally the biggest day, like a lot of this stuff happens, but I'm thinking more of a local thing here, like these fairs and all the stuff that happens in the fall, just kind of just being mindful of some of that stuff. And even at school events, I know it sounds eerie or what have you, but there's things as adults and, being in these minors' lives here, we have to be mindful of here. And they could pretty much be anybody. Questions or comments? I know we're getting to them at the end, but sometimes I know people might have questions along the way. Yes?
Guys, maybe Officer Cushman, have you seen anything like that happening here in town, where people are approached online, either children or adults?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I actually.
Oh, the mic, okay.
Sitting right next to me. The question was to Officer Cushman, whether or not we have seen any online inducements or trafficking happening here in Simsbury, either with the kids or adults.
Make sure it's green.
Yep, oh, it's green. Green means go. I can't speak to any specific incidents that I can think of where we could clearly say it's a trafficking incident with kids. Obviously, we've had interactions adult to juveniles or teenagers to adults, but nothing that I can specifically speak to with trafficking. However, like Qur-an said, I wouldn't doubt somewhere it's happening in town or with somebody, but nothing in particular that I can speak to.
Is there any monitoring on social media sites that the kids are using that might alert law enforcement to that type of activity, as you mentioned, between adults and underage children? Or
I know there's centers in Connecticut that constantly monitor. I don't know of a specific where there's a direct pipeline right to us to let us know. Generally, sometimes it comes out of an investigation, or it starts with some other issue or problem, and then once you start going through it, then it becomes a little more obvious that something else is going on. Again, I have not personally been involved in an incident like that. There are centers and people constantly monitoring social media. We don't have a big enough department or the resources to strictly do that, so we don't have that. But I know there are locations that are doing that, looking for keywords, looking for those type things.
Is there something that parents should look for? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still talking. That parents should look for in their kids' social media accounts that might look suspicious?
Yeah, we talked about it briefly, but I think all of it starts at home. I know now being a parent, I can appreciate what my parents were doing. At the time, I was very annoyed about where are you going, who's there, who's going to be there, how long are you going to be there, where are you going, are you coming back? Being in the schools now, I don't see a lot of that at all. And I think part of the problem is we didn't grow up with this. They did. So we're trying to catch up to the stuff they already know. So it's very difficult for us to get comfortable as adults checking this, what to look for. The new site comes out that can talk from Snapchat to Twitter to this one. Then Instagram has Finstagram, that's a hidden site. Then they have Calculator Pro, that is a calculator on your phone that you can use, but it's used to hide pictures that you didn't know that they took. So we're constantly behind the 8 ball to even start. They're way ahead of us. This because you're not on it all day like they are, they're way ahead of us. But for some reason, I think it's the discomfort of us not being more adept at this or more fluent with it, that we don't know where to check. We don't know what to look at. Snapchat, the stuff disappears. So even if you don't know how to work Snapchat, you don't even know what you're looking for or what you're looking at. But in saying that, if we're going to have, when we started doing stranger danger over 15 years ago, you could talk about when you're out raking leaves, when you're out riding a bike, when you're out. Now, if we went into a classroom right now in 3rd, 2nd grade and had that same discussion, they would look at you like, why would I do that? I don't do any of that. So now everything is evolving computers and social media talks and internet safety. When I first started doing it, it was 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Now we do it in 3rd, 4th, because those phones are being handed out to 3rd graders, 4th graders. So they're already in it. So as parents and as adults, we have to be ready when we hand out these devices. You're either going to limit what they have access to, or you're going to be ready to be checking it and on it all the time. And we all have busy lives on top of doing anything else. So you have to know what they're on, what they're checking. So it starts there, because by the time it gets to us, or there's a problem at school, or pictures have been distributed, we're way behind the 8 ball with it.
And I would just add to that, and obviously this topic here, not only just with your phones, even remember the video games that they're playing, the headsets that they're talking to other folks as well. That's another way that whole process starts. And this thing about, there's also that grooming, that they're doing, as far as the predators are doing as well too. And I would just say, as far as, and I was going to lead into obviously the parenting or what have you there. We did a research as far as parents and how much purposeful time that they spend with their kids here, as far as minors. You want to take a guess how much time is being spent? This is per our research, but if you want to take a guess at the answer, as far as at a 7-day week, how much time a parent spends with their child? You want to just blur it out. Just take a. You got an hour and a half. Okay. Anybody else? 7.5 hours. 42 minutes. It came to. And again, we can go on and talk about the definition of what purposeful mean, but just think about a typical day. Maybe picking your child up or your child coming home. My daughter said she must didn't want to hear this part, so she walked out. But I think it's just one of the coming home. How was your day at school? Which is the general response? Good. What's usually the next question? Do you have any homework? No, I did it at study hall. I did it at school. And then generally after that, it's kind of like maybe like a self-fulfilling kind of thing here, like what are we doing? What are we about to go do? And that's pretty much the conversation here. So I think, and again, to Officer's point here, we immersed in our own lives as adults trying to make sure the house is running, life is functioning as well too. But again, I always say with minors, they ain't asked to be here. That's usually my go-to, even when I'm tired and be tired and don't want to do something as far as then actually with a child here. That comes to mind here. But I think as far as just making sure we're having those conversations and, making sure they feel comfortable coming to us, should they feel unsafe in any shape or form here. But I think just being kind of just mindful of some of that stuff as well. And I apologize. I know I just
That's okay.
took somebody's question.
Sorry, there was another question.
Okay.
This question just made me think of all the Chromebooks that our kids in middle and high school have. Is there any preset on those Chromebooks that limits the access that the kids have when they are surfing the internet at home? Or is that something I'm supposed to do, or can I even do that?
She can speak more to it. She'll probably know exactly what's on the Chrome when she comes back. But yes, the Chromebooks, because they're school property, when they're being used, the school board, their IT, can look and pull up everything that's on there. There's filters via the computer, as far as I understand. So if certain things are looked up, that pops up onto their screen because that's school property. But is somebody sitting there waiting for something to come in? No. So we still, as adults, there's still a priority.
There's no limit like on a phone that actually stops a particular site.
That, again, I would have to look into to see what I know at
I
school.
can answer a little bit to that, just from experience. I have a fifth grader, and in fourth grade, he came home and said that he had seen some strange things on one of his classmates' Chromebooks. And I obviously got in touch with the teacher to ask a little bit more about it, and it turned out it was, I think, videos from Grand Theft Auto video game, and even with this video that they saw, there were advertisements for extremely inappropriate pornographic items, and there were a whole bunch of the children that were sort of looking at what is that, and I think the teacher wasn't maybe in the room at the time or didn't see what was going on. And the answer that I received from the teacher who spoke with the principal was that there is a firewall, but when there's some sort of Google updates to the firewalls, maybe the firewalls crash or they have to be reset, and they hadn't been, and so I think it's possible.
And I would just add too, I know some school systems as well too, with the Chromebooks or the electronic devices that they do get. Some schools actually have a time where they all shut off at a certain time as well too. So school does, obviously their IT department has the capability of not only seeing what they're looking at, but to completely shut it down. Also, some towns do that as far as with some of their equipment. They shut it down at a certain time and it turns back on at a certain time as well.
So one thing that I just want to add to that, which might sound a little bit silly, is kids are really creative, and people who put up weird videos and weird content are also really creative. So in terms of a lot of like different browser blockings and things like that, it's really kind of like content or like specific tag base. So sometimes, things will just slip through the cracks, and, until those cracks are, discovered, you're not really going to find them on your own. So you can be diligent, but there's always going to be new weird things that are going to pop up.
Yeah, and that, as far as those kind of like an ad popping up or something like that, I know the other day something popped up in the school on somebody's, and it was like a side ad. It wasn't something the kid searched. It was something must have been in the wording of the search they did, like the X hamster, like that's not who would come up. I remember, I think White House a while ago, White House dot something was a link right to a porn site. Why would you, any kid instantly could be looking up, so there's always going to be some little, a backdoor, a side, that they just typed in the wrong thing, and somebody already, somebody computer savvy set it up to be funny, or that the kid's looking up something. I know they're going over the Constitution right now. There's a lot of words in there that you could write it and be Googling something, and it pops up, and it's kind of like, oh.
Right.
But again, it was a pop-up ad for it wasn't a erotic site, it was just, I forget what the image was, but it wasn't appropriate for school. But nobody looked anything up, it was just they went on Google or some site, and that thing popped up. It had more to do with the site than the search. So again, it's being involved at home while they're doing things, asking for help, maybe being over their shoulder, being annoying. That's, as adults, that's our role, to keep doing that like our parents did for us, is being annoying, being in the way, being nosy. It's more difficult now because now we got to sort through this instead of watching them, bring them here, pick them up, riding a bike. It's a lot more difficult, but that's still our job as parents and adults, is to be nosy and be involved. 42 minutes, I mean, that's,
Yes.
I think what a lot of parents struggle with now is how much is too much when it comes to social media. I know now there's timers on your phone, you know, how much time do you spend on social media sites. But I'm sure in your work with kids, you can see the results of too much. I mean, when a child starts reacting emotionally and psychologically to what they're seeing in social media, either with direct interaction with somebody else, you know, they're having a Twitter fight or they're having some type of Snapchat fight. Do you have any recommendations about dealing with that?
Not sure. I think first and foremost, if it's within the house, like, you gotta know your kids, and I think where they're at development wise, as far as that goes. So again, we know the brain is forever growing. I know every year they change it from 20 to 25. I think it's 27 now. As far as the adolescent brain, or even the younger brain here, I think it's just one of the things, knowing your child. I think knowing your child as far as that goes here, because again, you think as far as, especially, you know, kindergarten, those ages here, like, they remember everything. This one I just walked by remembers everything. I think just kind of those images and those sites, you got to be very mindful as far as the time that you're allowing him or her to be on there. So I think each child is different and each household is different. But I think, you know, as far as parents here, it's no different than as far as having your kid outside, you know, all day, you know, not knowing what's going on here. So I think it's the same thing as far as, at least with a device, you can oversee that, like being in the room, not just using it as like, hey, you know, a leave me alone device that you can just go through that, but checking in and kind of looking over their shoulder, having the volume up, because the headphones is another instrument as far as I'm having headphones on, because you don't know what they're listening to or what somebody's saying something. So to answer your question, I think knowing your child, it just kind of knowing where they're at development wise here and what they can maintain and follow through appropriately, but also coming to you, hey, if there was a predator or somebody just reaching out to them online here. So I think it's one of those things here. You gotta know your child. You know, because I think each child might be different in those cases, but you still have your baseline as far as ages and where they're at as far as developmentally.
So I don't know, maybe Michela can help with this. What signs do you look for when a child is really crossed that line, when they're having difficulty breaking away from their phone or?
I think that can be a really interesting kind of line to walk, because on the one hand, social media, phones, tablets, et cetera, all of these different, you know, platforms, it's more or less how kids communicate with their friends these days. And that socialization point is, like, it's really important. And I can specifically remember as a kid, like, talking to my mom, like, Mom, you don't understand, these are my friends, I need to talk to my friends. And yes, that's really important, but at the same time, if your kid is, you know, spending all day, every day, just sitting there, like, they're talking to people that maybe they've never met, they're going through and, like, they place a lot of importance on, like, how many likes that they're getting on Instagram or Facebook, or how many Snapchat friends they have, and like, making sure that your kid actually knows the people that they're getting in contact with on these different platforms. I think that those are really key. And when you have this huge wide audience, it kind of becomes all encompassing, and you see kids put a lot more importance on that than, you know, the actual friendships that they'll make in school, the people that they'll hang out with on the weekends and things like that. So, I mean, in terms of trying to figure out how you know when, like, it's too much, I think he makes a really good point in terms of just knowing your kid, but also putting your kids, like, the priorities that they should be having, like making sure that homework and like actual face-to-face communication time is also happening. But again, it's an interesting caveat because that really is how kids socialize with their friends these days, and socialization is super, super important.
Just to piggyback on that, it's very rare that kids even text each other a conversation. I can say that at the middle school, primarily, almost every, like if a kid tells you texted somebody or sent them a message, it's generally through Snapchat. It's part of their story. It's part of their, it's not, if you went to their text messages, there's probably one from mom saying, are you almost home yet? And then there's nothing after that. And you're like, well, how did you talk to anyone? Like, no, it's through Snapchat. Why would I go through, like they take a picture out the window of the car, take a picture of the ceiling just to keep the conversation going, and it's about nothing. But that's part of our struggles. I still can't grasp how that's a conversation, but that's not for me to, that is how they communicate. Speaking about how many likes or reactions to a post, or that they live for that. Again, sadly, going into the elementary schools and doing those presentations, it is what used to be the sign of me and my friends, and there's 20 of us, and we're going to go sit at this table, and that table only has 2 people. So I have more friends at my table than you have at your table. That has nothing to do with it anymore. If I have 5,000 followers on my account and you have 4,000, I'm much cooler than you are, even though I can't identify more than 3 of them. So at the elementary school level, basically what I've started doing is setting up a fake where I select like 5 kids in the classroom. We usually go by grade level, and I say I'm picking 5 people, and we're going to do something really cool. So, you know, they have no idea what it is, but everyone wants to volunteer for that. So I pick the 5, and I say, all right, we're going to write down your name, your parents' name, your home address, your phone number, take pictures of yourself. We're going to make a flyer, and we're going down to Fitzgerald's right over here, and we're going to stand out there for an hour, and you're going to make 50 copies, and you're just going to hand it out to random people as they come in. You're going to introduce yourself, you're going to tell people all about yourself, and then we're just going to walk away. Then I ask them, how long do you think that's going to take before one adult says, what are you doing? Who are you? Why are you doing this? Or we get a phone call at the PD saying, hey, there's some weirdo down here with 5 kids handing out information. And they're all like, oh my God, I would never do it. You just told me you have 5,000 friends. You said you have 10,000. You have name them all. How many have you met? You did that in a click of a button. You lied to set up your account, and nobody checked. So what we're missing is the checks. We're missing somebody to step up and say, why do you have 5,000? What are you sharing with them? The kids don't, they can't handle that. They don't know, because part of it's our fault because we're so busy. Part of it's because the device is easy, and it's easy for them to access, it's easy for them to put out information, but they don't understand what they're sending, who they're sending to. They really have a bad concept of that they're genuinely thinking in their innocent minds that everybody that sends them a request to be a friend or a snap is exactly who they're saying it is. And that's where it's going to lead into someday one of these trafficking things, because they're suckers. They fall for all of it. They don't have good filters, and they're not getting help to filter through that, of what they should be sending, what they shouldn't, who they should communicate. They do have it, because when you put them in and you tell them that's what we're going to do, we're going to go hand out your information, they squirm. But when they do it on the phone or on their tablet, they don't have that effect. It also affects their communication skills with other people. having a simple conversation.
When you see papers that are written with IDK and LOL and handed
Right.
in to their teachers.
Right.
So it affects all of it, but the numbers, they want the attention. They want the followers, they want that one post to make a big impact and everybody will like it. By the same token, you'll see somebody post something they think they're gonna get the likes on and they get all the negatives on, and then we'll see them moping around the school, trying to, go to guidance. They don't want to go to class, they don't want to come to school anymore. So it's bigger because they can expose themselves much quicker than, I wrote down, and they learn everything from there. Vaping, smoking, drugs, sex, drugs, politics, opinions. They have access to all of it, so that's what they learn it from. And it's very difficult once they watch these people to try and convince them that it's not reality. It's not the truth. It's not, but that's what they learn from.
I would just have no idea how the phones are handled in the middle school and the high school. Are they kids who can just keep them and walk around with them and use them anytime they want? They're not taken in the classroom or anything? They can look at them all day?
They're supposed to be off and away. But the reality is they're on. They're carrying around because they're $1,000. They're $1,200. So if you lock them in the locker and then they go disappear, or the kid loses them while they're carrying them around, or we have on an everyday basis, mom and dad know it's off and away, but they're texting their own son or daughter in the middle of the day, and it's going back and forth about, hey, remember, you have dance tonight. Hey, remember, I'm picking you up at 4. Or so we could set all the rules we want, but we also have the adults on the outside of the school breaking the rules and telling their kids, don't worry about that, just keep it in your pocket, put it on vibrate. So in the middle school, it's off and away, but it doesn't happen.
At the high school, it's a lot more open. A lot of times they can be used for instructional use. Every teacher can be different. Some will have a phone tree and say phones need to be over here, put them off and away. When we're having our conversations or doing different things, you need to put them in your backpacks. But the kids do have them, and depending on what is taking place, the kids might say, may I use my phone to look this up? And yes, thank you for asking, but yes, you may. So definitely at the high school, it's a responsibility, but if it's misused, it absolutely can be taken. It can be given to administration and things like that.
And the middle school, if they're caught using it during the day, it's brought down to the office for the remainder of the day. They can pick it up at the end of the day. If it's caught a second time, then a parent has to come in and retrieve the phone. Right, so there's, but it speaks to how the kids themselves don't know another way to reach out to anybody. They truly do not. You could take away air from them and they would survive longer than taking away that phone. I've never seen anything like it. You take away that phone for the day, and even though they're not supposed to have it, but again, that is their communication device. But yeah, they're like all day.
Can I ask, has anybody checked their phone at least once? Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I know that I've got at least 3 text messages. It really is everywhere, and kids are going to learn from their parents, but again, it's not, you don't pass notes in class anymore. You send a quick text under the desk when your teacher is facing the other way, or just, blatantly outright. And again, phones really, they are a tool, and they can be super, super useful, but it's just an over dependence. And yeah, it really is it is a legitimate addiction. It's
And they
scary.
say,
I think I heard one teacher say, yeah.
it's like, it's the phantom vibrate. You hear your phone and vibrate, nothing happened here. And I think even with the texting, again, I think as caregivers and adults in the room here, that's starting to phase out. Obviously, you got the emojis we got to be on top of, the gifts. all that stuff now, like kids are like moving towards too. Emojis is a whole nother ball game as far as just kind of what's going on as far as like just trying to dissect that. And I know these are just some of the some texts as far as that comes about here. You just never know. Like you're going up to your kid, they might just be like parent over my shoulders, so they know to change their tune up as far as that goes here. But I'm just kind of jumping over to the emojis here. This is I know you might only could barely see it a little bit here, but this is a conversation about what someone is wearing and do you miss me? This is like all the emojis. The next thing you know, you see the whole censor thing of pictures getting sent. Obviously, pictures getting sent as far as indecent, as far as how they're looking. That picture continues to, transfer over to somebody else. First time I know it goes to somebody else, that's automatically a crime. Sometimes some kids don't even realize that, as far as you're not supposed to be sending like naked pictures, as far as that goes here. Again, initial person receives it, fine. Hopefully that him or her report it, but that chain starts going. Each person can actually get, get in some type of trouble here as far as distributing, pornography here. But to what I was just trying to initially say, emojis and the GIFs are becoming just like more of a big thing versus the texts, because it's easier just to make a face or do something here versus typing 3 letters now. Things are just getting quicker and quicker as far as it goes here. So I think it's just being mindful of as caregivers about that stuff as well. Any questions or just comments?
Is this the kind of thing you're saying that the kids aren't actually doing the regular old texting? This stuff is being done like in Snapchat? Is that
Because they could do emojis and all that stuff as well too, as far as that goes, those conversations.
chat? So I have no clue what it looks like.
Snapchat has like a chat feature. You can send pictures, put captions on them and whatnot, and you can post them to like a temporary like 24-hour story, but you can also just send them directly to your friends, or you can just send like just specific like chats, so you can have like basically text conversations via Snapchat.
But then does it go away?
It
Like I
can,
hear the pictures
unless
go.
the person saves it.
Now,
Unless the person who receives it saves it.
even with the going away part, if for crime or investigations, that stuff never really goes away. It can get retrieved somehow, some way here. That was kind of the thing, like, hey, you can do this and it'll
Right.
go away. But let something happen where, more people will get involved as far as the police or what have you, that stuff can resurface.
Right, so Snapchat, when it started, was obviously built to send inappropriate things, and they would disappear in 10 seconds or whatever you set it up to, and it was gone to the normal person. So if you looked at it, whatever they sent was already gone. As soon as they view it, then you get like 10 seconds, it's gone. Snapchat then ran into an issue where people were getting really upset, where, hey, I tried to look at that, and somebody screenshotted it. It was supposed to go away. So then Snapchat didn't fix that. They only put on there an alert to tell you when you sent something inappropriate. An alert came up that somebody screenshotted that. So now you took the anxiety of sending it and it disappeared. Now you raise the anxiety of the kid because they sent it, they knew it was inappropriate, and now they know somebody has it. But now kids didn't want to alert others that they took a screenshot. So before you open it to watch the video, the picture, what it is, somebody else has their phone
Taking
on
pictures
record
of it.
or take a picture. So you hit play, you get the video, somebody records it with a completely different device. They don't get the alert, now you have the video, and now you just send it all over the place.
Right.
And it was
Like,
just-
oh, it didn't go anywhere, thank God. All right, we're good. Wait a minute, he has it, she's got it, she saw it, and they're like, wait a minute, I didn't get. So there's always the calculator app that I referenced before was the result of somebody had pictures of kids, and then they hit it.
these little hidden apps here, like
So
something like that.
it's a regular calculator, and you can use it as a normal one, but if you put in your code, it opens up, and all it is a photo booth, a photo center of all pictures. And they
Folder
would
of, like,
literally
all your information,
take a
yeah.
picture, put it in that app, delete it, then clean out their deleted or their trash bin out of the photos. So if you went to go try and track it backwards, it's not there, it's just in this hidden app. And you know, any one of us go picks it up, if we didn't know about it and says, let me see your phone, I'm checking your pictures, there's nothing there. It's hidden in a different app.
So how as parents can we determine the fake ones,
So,
the hidden ones?
sorry, go ahead.
So there's Calculator Pro you can, just like they can Google, you can just Google fake calculator apps and you'll see like a whole, but I haven't seen that since we ran into that, and that was probably now like 4 years ago. So they're on to something else. Finstagram came up where initially it was supposed to be like an Instagram, but then a separate picture location for that, where kids were sending the dirty pictures and putting it in that folder instead of their regular Instagram. Then it was, so that there's always going to be some other new area where they're going to do that. You'd have to, it's impossible to find all of it. It really is.
But I will also add too, as much as kids are smart, they're not smart. You know, as far as you see two calculator apps on your kids' phones or something. I mean, as a parent, you might feel proud, like, oh, hey, you know, Jerry's really smart here. Maybe this is for calculus, you know. But I think as a parent, though, it should raise an eyebrow here, you know, as far as just kind of wanting to check that stuff as well too. So I think sometimes we look deep into stuff when it's like really just kind of ABC-ish, and common sense wise. I mean, just kind of like, hey, yeah, two of the same similar looking calculator apps here. What's going on? Or you going into it? You paying for the phone, so I think you got every right to kind of go in and kind of do what you need to do here. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to share, as a mom, what works for me. I have two daughters, 10th and 11th grade, and as long as I'm paying for that phone
That's right.
service, exactly what you said, like I have every right to go into their phone and check, and I'll do like spot checks, and I'll go through their texts, especially if they have a boyfriend. But what works for me in regards to the apps is having settings on the phone that they have to ask me for permission before they can download anything. So then that lets me go in and check and see what it is that they're asking to have.
Thanks, Cheryl. So I was just saying, as a mom, what works for me is I have permissions on the phone that my children have to ask me for permission for every app that they're downloading, so they can't get something like this without me knowing that they're asking for it. And then the other thing that works for me, which my children don't like at all, but that's okay, from my phone, I can control how much time they spend on every single app that they have. So I like severely limit during the week how much they can go on Facebook, how much they can go on Snapchat, and how much they can play their games. And I also turn off their phones at 9:30, so all they can do is make emergency phone calls. Again, I'm not their biggest fan, or they're not my, you know what I mean. It doesn't make them happy, but it works, and you know, they could still be doing things that I don't know about, but at least I feel like I have a little bit control over what they're doing.
And to add to that, I think another way of kind of just being a parent, you can play dumb, like with your kids. They're like, hey, I heard about this one new app. They might be like, oh, that's old. As a parent, just don't respond, because once they say, oh, that's old, about 3 seconds later, oh, we're doing this now. And they'll probably just they'll talk about what they're doing here. But it's, again, you just gotta, you gotta kind of cat and mouse sometimes with them, but in the same breath, kind of be quiet, because they're going to give you the answer. As soon as they say something's old or we're corny about something, as far as the adults, they're going to tell you what they're doing, most of them, in most cases.
So one thing that I just want to add as well, and I mean, I'm going to preface this with the fact that, I personally am not a parent. I'm just somebody who has a lot of experience with mentoring kids. And I will say that I think that a person's first line of defense in terms of trying to maintain that sort of a safety aspect for their kids is trying to foster an environment where your kid feels comfortable talking to you. Obviously, if your kid is doing inappropriate or, sometimes even illegal things, they're probably not going to want to talk to you about it. But I think that it really does go back to trying to be open and trying to be honest with your kids and having an attitude of, you know, like, if you've done something wrong, I want you to come and talk to me about it. Doesn't mean that maybe you won't get punished for it, but it does mean that I will hear you out and we will have a legitimate conversation and trying to treat your kids with autonomy. I think that that is really, really important as well.
And thinking, knowing on top of that, like, you want your kids to know, like, I just want you to get home. You know, I want you to make it home, you know, as far as that whole safety piece here. You know, we'll deal with whatever else later, but I need you to get home. So.
Yeah.
Let's see. Obviously, I know cyberbullying is a big thing here, as far as what's going on. The one acronym that text that whole you know, KY, excuse me, the whole kill yourself here, KYS, that's like nationally, internationally, like, you just always say you never know how somebody's day is going, even though despite, them on an exterior wise there, they look happy, they look okay here. I think some of the genuineness that we've lost due to kind of the less socializing with the phones and devices here. But I think as adults here, just having those conversations, whether it's in the school, just checking in on somebody like, hey, how you doing? Let them know, like, there's supports around, there's resources around here, and being genuine about it, not just saying, hey, how you doing, just because it's the thing to say. But kids know when you're full of it. They have the greatest BS meter that I know. But I think it's just one of those things here, being genuine about it, because situations come up where there are people online and interacting where, it might be one of those days here and somebody is bullying them and that acronym comes out as far as, hey, kill yourself, and we don't want that to happen, obviously. But I think it's just important, the whole people skills and the face-to-face, the conversations, that stuff still remain intact here. And even as parents, I know it's easy for us sometimes, or just caregivers, to get lazy a little bit here. I don't want nobody to raise their hand, when I state this here, like, are you texting your kid in the house? If they're upstairs, like, hey, come downstairs to eat. Well, again, I think it's some of those things here as far as being mindful of that here, like them hearing your actual voice. Get downstairs. If there's a cuss word that goes in there, to make sure they get down there, they're hearing your voice. They know that it's coming from you versus, you're texting with your kid who's out in the backyard or somewhere else here. This, that face-to-face stuff here. I think that's so important that we're losing that, as far as a society here, we're just losing that, that face-to-face time here, which was actually brought up earlier here. But I think the bullying piece here is just making sure that kids know they're in a safe environment. And to my point earlier, you want them to get home. And I think just being genuine in your conversations when you're having them, whether it's at school, in passing, what have you, because again, you just never know how somebody's day is going.
And the cyberbullying, because they're always on these devices, it just never goes away.
Yeah.
The old playground fight that took 5 minutes and it was gone. They went to the next period, the day was over, and it's over. There's nobody to relive it. Now it's on a videotape. Now there's 45 people or the 1,000 people that they have friends all talking about it on Tuesday through Saturday. The kid they can't get over it. They can't get past it because it never goes away. So it's an environment that we didn't have to deal with, that they're never out of. That's what we see. Like, it just never goes away. Or because it never disappears, that picture, it could be gone and they deal with it for a few months or whatever it is, and they think it's gone, and then it pops back up in a year. And now they have to fight through it all over again. But they don't get that in the moment, and they have access to these devices. It's not a great mix.
So one other thing on top of that is, if your phone is always on, you are always socializing. And if you're somebody who struggles with making friends, if you're somebody who has a lot of serious self-doubts or mental health concerns, if you feel as though you're not getting all that same kind of attention on Snapchat, on Instagram, on Facebook, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but you're seeing all of these amazing posts where everybody's getting, like 55 likes from their friends, blah, 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 and then you don't, it's kind of just this overarching theme where you just feel like you go home, you're not good enough, you go to school, you're not good enough, you're just never really quite getting that socialization key that you want. So that can be really, really hard for kids as well. So I think that, again, limiting things, that's also another really good reason to try to limit the amount of screen time that kids have, especially if you know that your kid is somebody who might struggle with making friends or trying to have friends outside of school.
And who's great with that's actually, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's actually right next door in West Hartford. Dr. David Greenfield. He does a lot of work around internet addiction as far as whether it's teenagers or adults here, but that's his thing. And he's, like I said, he's located right in West Hartford here, so it's only a short drive over the hill right there as far as he does a lot of work. His name is David Greenfield. If you guys are interested as far as or have any kids or anybody you want to refer to. He's been doing this work for years before it became the thing to talk about. So he's definitely a great guy as far as to look into as well here. And this was just kind of a chart that we developed here, just talking about just the impact of anything tied into electronics here, just how, it just goes eventually to unsustainable here. And I think we were just having those conversations here as far as just as parents, and then as teachers and just people in kids' lives here, setting those guidelines and sticking to those rules. And then I know to your point, sometimes parents do undermine the whole phone coming in here, but I think it's one of those things here, the parents need to be called on that as well, by administration or what have you there. I know we develop contracts, it's actually on our website, I didn't pull it up, but as far as parent contracts and also youth contracts, and you can kind of cater them to however it seems fit as far as your child or also you as a parent here. That gets signed to something that could get stuck up on a refrigerator or just something just to have as far as the do's and don'ts. You mentioned screen time as far as shutting down 9 o'clock or a certain time here. But again, you cater to your means and how you want to raise and develop your own children here. So again, I know we do have those on our website as far as just the view, and kind of like I said, you could take that and, like I said, cater to your own here. Just questions, guys. I think this has been cool as far as, again, I think, just not only us three up here, but just hearing from, the audience, because you're the ones that are going through it, or just whether it's kids personally or just what you do professionally here, because this is not going away. This is not going away. So I think it's just one of those things here, just getting a handle on it and not being afraid to ask questions. But I think just don't lose the common ABCs of being a parent or being a caregiver here, because sometimes the simplest things is the best thing, versus no matter how many books we read or who we listen to or go see here, just the simple conversations as far as with your child. And we all know, as far as some of us here, probably already past the statute of limitations of some of the stuff we've done as kids here, but I think we grow up, and just like our kids, they're going to grow up and be in our shoes, so I think it's just important to make sure those conversations are just ongoing here, because I think it's one of those things, don't look for the immediate gratification, they'll thank you later, because I'm sure stuff as adults, we probably thanked who raised us or did some stuff with us, we thank them later, like, I get it, so don't think like you're doing something wrong if it doesn't click, because eventually it will, Absolutely.
Does anyone else have any questions for our panel? Okay, I just like, go ahead, yeah.
A little bit more on like addiction. I think my son is addicted to video games, and when I try and get him off, he gets so mad. And any suggestions or anything?
I think with addiction, you deal with it like any other addiction, as far as somebody might have, I don't know whether it's gambling or what have you there, you deal with, there's no like concrete, like as far as prescription for it, as far as video game addiction, you deal with like any other addiction. Knowing your child, I know that's been the theme, but sometimes you just gotta go cold turkey. You gotta, how old is your son? He's 14. Is your house, your rules, right? Right. And I think it's just one of those things here. You might hear it for a while, or however he may make comments of the same breath here, but I'm gonna take a guess that he's not paying for any of that. Right. Again, I think it just goes down to that. You might have to hear it because that withdrawing because he's pissed and everything else, and he might have some words for you. But I think with anything here, time, time and just kind of having more of a different kind of structure here. And again, I don't want to say the phones and all, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. And I know, but I think there's also other things socially he can be doing here. And I'm not here to raise your kid or just tell you how to raise your kid, but I think it's just one of those things here. Like any other addiction, sometimes you just got to just pull away and kind of just deal with the time of it. And I think sometimes as parents, we think time is like an eternity, like he's going to be upset forever. Forever in the kid's life is not that long, even 14, being 14, So I think it's just having to just deal with that initial pushback. And then you just set up, hey, this is how it's going to be. And like I said, it's your house, your rules.
Karan, maybe you could tell me, but I've heard from other parents who, I have a 20-year-old son who has gone through the whole video game thing and is still in it, but there actually is therapists and recovery programs for extreme cases, and it seems to mostly be young men who have an actual addiction to gaming, and that there are recovery programs just as if you were addicted to drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, and again, that's why when I did mention Dr. Greenfield, because he's doing a lot of stuff just around addiction. I mean, like, he's great. And I think in regards to that, you still treat that addiction similar to the drugs, the gambling, and everything else as far as the similar methods that they use to treat. The same thing with video games or what have you. There's a lot of similarities with that. There's a lot of similarities.
And speaking to the kids, they are under the impression that the phone is theirs.
Right.
The Snapchat account is theirs. Never say Facebook because they don't use that. That's for old people. Instagram account is theirs. They don't even have a concept that those are companies that once they signed up, that those companies actually own the account, and it's not theirs. The only way I can explain it to them is if something happens on the account and we want to look at it for an investigation, I don't have to ask your permission. I have to get a search warrant to go to Instagram, and they'll give it to me because it's theirs, not yours. The phone is not yours unless the bill comes in your name to your house and you paid for it. And some kids have chipped in a couple bucks for but most of them are under the impression that because it was given to them, it's theirs. The room that they live in your house is theirs. And we have to, no, you're in their house unless you're paying rent. Like, they can go in that room because they're letting you borrow it. So until you start taking ownership of it by paying for it, it's theirs and not yours. And the look on their face sometimes like, all right, ask them. Like, oh, your parents can shut off your phone right now. With the accounts, we have learned, and you have to be aware of, any one of those accounts, social media-wise, they can log into somebody else's and they share passwords. That becomes a whole nother disaster. So, you punish your son and he's got a cell phone, you take away, you got to log out all those accounts. Then he goes to a game or goes on a trip somewhere and grabs their phone and logs into his own account, and now he's still sending stuff to go after somebody else that got him in trouble, and now he doesn't have his phone because it's this whole. So they can log into any account anytime they want from any device. And then they'll say, or they get punished, and again, with Snapchat, they want their streak to keep going, or it'll ruin it. So I give you my password so you can keep logging in just to make streaks, and then we get in a fight. You have my password, so you log in as me to get back at me, and then send her a message, but it's coming through as from me and my account. And you're having fun all day. You got friends over there egging you on to send more, send a picture, send this, and it's coming through as not you, but me, and I get in trouble for it. But I can have a hard time proving that it wasn't me. It's coming through from my account. So they know what they're doing, and they're sneaky. But they're not that smart. So you keep asking questions. Eventually you're going to trip them up because they're not planning on getting berated about it. So we have to be careful about what they're doing and setting the expectation that they're not in control of this. This is not your phone, right? Like Kristen said, like, it's my phone, I pay for it, so here's the rules. It's not going to be popular. It's not going to go over well a lot of the times. But if we keep that perspective for them that I'm letting you borrow this, I'm paying for it, and I'll take it back. The problem sometimes is, though, that it is their one form of communication, because they're not going to use the home phone, if you have it anymore.
If they even know how it works.
They can't go down here and use the payphone because it's not there. So the options are limited. I know we've had instances where a kid gets mad, you take the phone away and you leave. We had a GPS on them, now we don't. They don't have a phone, they don't memorize a phone number because it's in there. Like, there's a lot of, it's kind of a scary territory. Because, again, they are so dependent on it that if you take it away, their ability to make communication now is just left with the phone. Because, again, if they're not using text messages, they don't have to know a phone number. They just know your Snapchat name. So there's a lot that goes into it. So gaming-wise, they may not use their real name. They may use, a screen name for that game or a screen name for this game, and they go online and play with this person, or and if they're not, sometimes I feel like the kids that aren't athletes, but they're into gaming, and they're really good at this game, and people are watching them play this game. You've taken away their strength in their mind. So it's a constant battle. But again, knowing your own kid and being in communication, but sometimes being, nope, this is all you got. That's the line. I mean, we've all gone through it as kids growing up, where at some point our parents really ticked us off because they said that was it, and we hated it then, and now looking back, we're about to do the same thing. Maybe use the same line, the same language that we said, I'll never say that to my kids. And we've said it 4 times this week.
And guess what? We got over it. They got over it, So it's just, when you're in the midst of it, you think it's going to last forever. They get over it.
Well, if there's no other questions, I'd just like to thank all of our panelists for really great information and a great conversation, and all of you for coming tonight. We very much appreciate you coming to talk to us tonight, and I hope that you'll come back sometime. So let's all give them a big hand for our...
Was it bed? I thought you were saying it's past Sarah's bedtime, because I'm usually in bed in like an hour.
It's,
Tie your shoes.
kind of in between.
Where's Miss Becky?